Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GLORIO Chat, the best anime podcast on the internet. I'm going to use all of my self-control and not use any of this podcast to talk about Honkai Star Rail, which I have been playing, and I really do want to talk about the trash cans, but you may have all seen that on the internet already. But
I guess we're all sick in a way this week.
Yes.
I've seen a weird number of what appear to be Disco Elysium references in that game. Which
okay, so as probably the last person in the GLORIO chat who has not played Disco Elysium, I do feel like I've absorbed enough of it to maybe understand why that would happen.
Are there piss-soaked, cum-stained party pants in Honkai Star Rail?
No, but like I saw a reference to like, somebody was sleeping in this trash can or something,
right.
They're doing
or a
the
dumpster.
Gonna do the Jamrock shuffle.
Someone wears a jacket that says "fuck the world."
But
I mean, if they could get away with it, the main character of Honkai Star Rail would definitely wear that jacket. But since they do the thing I love, where the main character is a horrible, chaotic gremlin person. But I said I was not going to talk about Honkai Star Rail. We have a lot of anime to talk about, so let's move on.
Well, don't worry, Jel. The next time I go through another depressive episode, I'll probably pick it up.
Yeah,
and
so when you're ready to pick up another,
when
you're ready to pick up another gacha game, we'll talk. Anyway, let's introduce everybody before we get into the anime talk. I'm Jel. I'm joined by Iroh.
I'm still here. I'm not dead yet.
That doesn't sound as convincing as usual, but thank you for hanging in with us, Iroh. And we're joined by G.
Even in death, I still serve.
Also, yes, also avoiding death to be with us this week. And we are joined by Aqua.
My heart is in 1,000 pieces, and my chest is full of bees.
So you can tell we're all doing fantastic.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Session.
This is going to be a fun one, folks.
It's May 2023, baby.
Yep. We've got a lot of shows stuck around from our preview show, which leaves us with quite a bit to talk about. And some of these, I think we're going to have a lot to say. So let's dive into it. And we can start with finally getting around to watching whatever this Ranking of Kings thing is. The Ranking of Kings, the Treasure Chest of Courage.
Yes.
I up until about 5 minutes ago, I thought this was actually like Blu-ray extras that they were putting out, but I guess not. This is actually
this is new stuff, newly animated stuff,
quote unquote new content,
right?
But
it's like all of the stories from the parts of the manga that the first season adapted that they didn't adapt, right, or something like that.
I didn't check like actual. I didn't do actual research on it, but that's what it feels like.
I'm not actually even sure of that. Like, there's a lot of it that feels like it's almost like just, I don't know, OVA Gaiden material.
Right. Yeah. Like, the thing this reminds me of is like when a band announces a new album, and you're like, didn't you guys put out a new album last year? And they'll be like, no, this is like our new material. And then you listen to it, it's like, this is obviously B-sides from the recording session for the last album.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Maybe that's a better title for Ranking of Kings, is Ranking of Kings B-sides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's weird because it is like full-length episodes, and there's going to be 10 of them. So it's like time-wise the content of a new season. But the content itself is not a new season. If you were expecting the continuation of Boji's adventure to starting his own kingdom, which is the only thing that I was interested in watching for more Ranking of Kings, then that is not happening. These are like in-between stories of like what they were doing when they were training with Despa or whatever. And
which is odd, right? Because when Ranking of Kings was originally airing, we pretty much loved all the characters. Like, we would have given a lot to get more time with these characters.
Right.
So what happened?
So what happened is this season is what we sort of assumed Ranking of Kings might have been, just based on the aesthetic, which is it's a bunch. It's so far it's kind of a bunch of stories of like, and then they did a thing and people were nice, and then everybody lived happily ever after because people were nice.
It's
Whereas
literal
I
fairy
think-
tales.
right.
Yeah.
Right,
Whereas I
they feel like uncritical fairy tales.
Right. And I think what drew us to the show in the first place was that it used that aesthetic to have a much greater like emotional depth
Right.
and nuance
Absolutely.
than we were expecting.
Yeah,
And
I
so
feel like
there's
yeah, I
not
feel
any
like-
of that here when it's just like, and they meet the old mushroom lady, and you who knows fairy tales knows that the old mushroom lady will, is bugging Kage to test his metal.
It's a secret test of character
and whatnot, and that
Mm.
as he proves his good intentions, she will permit him to take the mushrooms or whatever. Whereas, I don't know, yeah, in the original show, we would not be doing something as mundane as that, right?
Well, the thing is that the show is that the original Ranking of Kings did, and it did it in a way that kept things like compelling and a little surreal and occasionally off-putting. Like in a lot of ways, I would, like you had the episode where Kage and Boji meet the king of the forest, right? The weird dancing guy who like is implied to have been a former number one king who has lost himself to the madness.
Right.
And
but like
that is
like
structurally, that is basically we meet a weird old person in the woods episode, but
That's
its
a
execution,
Bobadil episode.
Yes.
Yeah, is so dramatically different from what the
and it's very intertwined with the other mysteries of the setting and stuff. Whereas, like, I don't know, I don't think the shutter cap mushrooms or whatever are going to necessarily be tied into the greater story of like why these characters do what they do.
Yeah,
right. I think. Oh, go ahead.
No, it's kind of odd because it feels like one of those like anthology manga, but not like the ones where they're like, oh, we had like 12 different mangaka to do a chapter of these characters from popular property doing random things, and it's like it always feels off because like it is just those mangaka interpreting their personal interpretation of the character, which is usually more shallow than
to a certain
canon depiction.
Extent, I think those anthologies can be fun because of that.
Yeah,
I think that where Ranking of Kings doesn't even like hit that level of like academic interest is like the 3 or 4 episodes we've seen so far are not even like particularly like novel interpretations of Ranking of Kings. It's kind of been the most like surface level. Like the most interesting like story I think that we've seen is probably the Queen Healing episode, where it's basically just explains how did she get those 3 knights that are accompanying her in the second half, right? And I wouldn't say it's like, there's like some hard-hitting revelations here, but it's more like, it's just a little bit more of Queen Healing and like, examining her life before she became married to King Boss. We find out that Queen Healing, before she became a queen, was the white mage of her adventurers party.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like in betweening. It's filling in the gaps that didn't need to be filled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for me, and I didn't even watch that far. I don't even remember if I watched the second episode, to be honest, because it's all like, it's like, even though it's a full-length episode, it's like 2 or 3 segments per episode, right? Like they're broken down into smaller pieces, and none of the stories have anything to do with each other. To me, it's like, yeah, these little like fun little fairy tales are an aspect of what Rankings of Kings is, but we enjoyed the main series because that was like one piece of like a much more multi-layered series, right? And so it doesn't feel like it's necessarily out of place with Ranking of Kings, but this is also like one little piece of it that's probably the least interesting piece of the entire series. And to me, overall, it just feels like they're just kind of milking a pretty popular, because I understand, but I think the anime was pretty popular. Like, it's just like we're squeezing out as much as we can out of this thing.
Yeah. So you guys were really rather bummed on the ending of the original Ranking of Kings, right?
Yeah.
Do you think this continues the same problems, or is it just a completely different issue?
Completely different.
Sort of
different issue, I would
say.
I think it's a different issue. I mean, they are probably talking in concert with each other, right? Because for better or worse, we watch these episodes, and in the back of our heads, we all know that, well, this all goes in one direction by the end of this, right? Like, we know how all these character arcs are going to conclude. So in that aspect, they are a little bit connected. But no, I would say that our specific issues with this new series are fundamentally different from the issues we had with the ending of the original anime.
I was just interested because you do stress the fact that in these new stories, it's all about being nice, and that was also an issue with the ending of the original show, right? That they're so dedicated to
it's like
in a different way,
reconciliation,
right. But there's a time and place for that, and so far in these stories, it's like, okay, well, yes, that is a time to be a nice person, and it makes sense, like, and it doesn't go against, the sort of, I guess, logic that we've established for the show and everything. Whereas I felt like in the main series, they were building up to a point where it was like, okay, well, there are times where you can't be the nice person. You have to, make tough decisions and things. And they kind of just threw that out the window at the end. But we don't need to relitigate the ending of Ranking of Kings here. But yes, to answer your question overall, I don't think that's the problem here. I think the problem here is just it's like these little one-off stories that are like not really relevant to anything, and it's like not really. I don't feel like it's adding much to the Ranking of Kings experience, and they're not really that interesting enough on their own or deep enough. I mean, they're each like 10 minutes long or something. So
if they do end up making a second season that properly continues the story, are you going to be tuning in?
So I think that my prediction is that since the eponymous treasure chest of courage is yet to appear, I think that, and because the opening is set like after season 1, like the clips in the opening of all the characters of season 1, I think there will probably be a multi-episode arc probably at the end of this that's a continuation.
Maybe
that's the vibe I get.
Oh, right. I thought the treasure chest just referred to like, it's a treasure trove of stories.
It could also be that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, that's a good point, because the opening does kind of speak about the events of the first season, and
because every episode's like, I'm sure you remember the events of season 1, but this story happened in between here and here.
Oh boy,
it's referring to everything in past tense. So like maybe this maybe it is just setting up a proper season 2. I don't know, but
I don't know.
I haven't even watched past. I don't know if you guys are gonna keep watching it. I'm
getting some serious like Haruhi season 2 vibes of this. Of like, here is just some like unessential stuff that we could also adapt,
right?
And then the real continuation is like later on a movie or another season or something like that.
Let's be real, nothing will ever be Haruhi season 2. They will never do that again.
Time and place.
All you kids out there, go look that up, because that was like
that was
only
a wild time.
Only real ones remember Endless 8.
What a day! What a time to be alive.
Go, if you're under the age of 25, go Google Endless 8. Oh God! All right, let's move on. I'm so
glad we're comparing Ranking of Kings to Endless 8. That's how it feels, huh?
Maybe not the best comparison, but yeah, let's move on and talk about my love story with Yamada-kun at level 999. It's been interesting these past 2 weeks. I feel like they've swung wildly between being the most basic, predictable shoujo manga template stories to not that exactly, more of its own sort of comfortable friends hanging out vibe.
Okay.
And it all centers mostly on these 2 episodes, kind of focus on one of the other girls in the guild she's a younger girl. She's like supposed to be like 13 or 14, so pretty young compared to everybody else.
Right.
A child.
And she's like she's like so like her adult brother is also in the guild, so they're in it together.
Okay,
so that's how they're in it. And she also has a crush on Yamada-kun, and it's completely one-sided.
Yamada-kun, who is like twice her age.
Well, he's like, we established he's 17 or 18.
Oh, okay.
Right.
He's the
Twice,
senior
yeah.
in
I was
high
gonna
school.
say. I feel like it's
My bad. I'm
I mean,
getting mixed up
yeah.
with the various other like game themed romance shows.
Also, yeah, precocious crush is not necessarily a bad trope. It depends on what you do with it. Like,
and I think she feels even more inadequate because the main girl is like 20 or 20 to 22 established, right? So she's
Right,
actually
okay, yes.
getting considerably
Yeah.
older than this girl, and she's seeing her man getting taken away by this
by
older
this
woman.
Jezebel. Yeah.
Yes. And so she sets her up, like where she says, because at first so they have like an in-person meetup, and she's like really mean to the main girl, and then she's like, at the end she's like, oh, I'm sorry, maybe we should go hang out, and she tells her we're gonna hang out on this date, and when that day comes, she instead has Yamada-kun come over to tutor her because he does that, and instead sends one of her we finally see a stereotypical gamer guy. One of her stereotypical gamer guy friends telling him he's like, it's a blind date or something to go meet her while she goes hangs out with Yamada at the appointed time that they were going to hang out. Some real dick move, basically. But yeah, but you know, Yamada, because he's on top of everything and he really cares about the main girl, figures it out. He's like, wait, I remember several weeks ago you said you were going to hang out with her on this date. why are we where is she? What happened? And he gets mad, and everybody gets mad, and we get a rather funny scene with the main girl trying to politely shake off this gamer dude who is like basically milady everything, calling her whatever Sama, and so
Alonso Perez is trying his hand at a different show.
Yeah, so the rest of the guild comes and rescues her, and Big Brother scolds the little girl for what she did, and she feels bad, and she's like, it's only because I don't want to lose all my friends and everything. And they just make like a hard flip over into the next episode where like now they're friends, I guess. And the main girl is sort of like her big sister now, and they're hanging out and having fun, and
we are friends now.
And
I mean, she's kind of trying to now, her and her brother are now trying to hook her up with Yamada officially, because they're still shuffling their feet when they should be dating at this point. But it's through all of this, there's not really a lot of video game stuff, which was
okay.
Good.
Well, yeah, I was kind of a little disappointed though. Like, I mean, they did have some jokes in there. Like one of them where the main girl is trying to farm new boots, and she copies Yamada and farms intelligence-based boots, but she's a paladin and he's a wizard. So
God, that's some like deep gamer.
Yeah, so he's like
suboptimal.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, you got to farm the vitality boots. You're a paladin. Come on. And so they slip a little bit of it out there, but I mean, like 90% of these 2 episodes are completely outside of the game world and have nothing to do with it, which I think it's good and bad, because when I was talking about the show last time, this is a rare show that actually does a good job of taking those jokes and like using them to enhance the main story. Rather
like
than...
overall, it seems like a very like positive like take on that. Yes. On those kinds of tropes. Like, it might even like, because with the thing with the like classic gamer guy being shown as like an undesirable joke character, it almost feels a bit like a kind of fantasy for girls who like do love video games but hate all the guys they have to hang out with in video games.
Yeah,
like...
in a way that might be right. There might be a little bit of that going on here, to be honest. Yeah. What if the guys you're playing with are actually
nice? Yeah.
That are really nice to you, and so there might be a little bit of that in there. That's fine. Well, so but yeah, I mean, it's been fun. I think expanding the cast has generally been good. The one other person in their guild is this like balding middle-aged man who's like a strawberry farmer, and he's like very like he's just like the nicest, like sweetest
Oh,
guy.
hell yeah.
And like when he finds out what happened to the main girl, he's like freaking out, and he's like, we're gonna go help, we're gonna go save her, even though he's a very like sort of meek type. He's not like he's like a very like soft-spoken sort of meek type of guy, but he's like all fired up to go save and he's probably the best character so far. But
anime old man, always good.
Also top tier anime faces. Dumb anime faces. There's one bit with the young girl is hanging out with the main girl, and the main girl's other adult friend. They're like lazy. They're just having a lazy Saturday afternoon, and they start arguing about like her friends like, you stop playing video games. Let's go somewhere or something. And then while they're arguing, the whole time is just like the camera fixed on the younger girl making like a really stupid face and eating potato chips while she's watching them for like. I'll have to post that screen cap.
Enjoying the show.
Yes. Yeah. Just like great.
You know, there's some hot competition this season for good faces.
It's true. There is competition, but they're putting in a strong showing. So,
Jel, you've watched several shows with similar setups, like like your romance in an MMO from a female perspective.
Yes, that's that subgenre.
Yeah, but no, I'm especially thinking about that one show with the director who was like an anti-Semite.
Oh, before the director went on his anti-Semitic rant. Recovery of an MMO junkie.
Right. How would you compare this to that?
This is a little more conventional shoujo romance. That show was, because in that show they were like over 30. They were like real adults.
Right.
So it was more of that like working adult perspective versus, even though the main girl's like still in college or whatever, most of the characters, it still feels like teenagers, at least to me, because I'm an old man.
It's like a nominal difference.
Yeah. I mean they're not showing it. There's no like school bits. There's no like, let's go to the cultural festival or something. Like there's no school stuff, but in terms of like maturity level,
it is still very much the Seishun Spring of Youth vibe.
Which is fine, because like, I mean, we don't have to deal with the school stuff, so I mean that's nice. But yeah, so I think that's probably the primary difference, and this does feel more like a conventional, like I said, some of those plot lines of like when she sets up the main girl on the fake blind date, that felt like something out of a shoujo manga, like something.
It really is just like, this is your like shoujo romance with gaming.
Yes, a little bit of
like,
that, injected into it. But it's I mean, very well done version of it.
I mean, clearly written by someone who knows their stuff. Like,
right?
Yeah. So it's been fun.
Yeah.
All right.
Have they reached level 999 yet?
No. As I referred to last week, I believe the level 999 refers to their love for each other, but we have not gotten there yet.
Oh,
we're getting there. Let's talk about another nice show.
Yeah.
Nice, full of nice people. Skip and Loafer
and Egashira.
Yes. Aqua, are you watching this still?
Skip and Loafer, absolutely.
Okay. You're still with me on this one. Yeah. So I guess since the first episode, it's been kind of introducing a new character per episode or something. Kind of.
Yeah, they've been doing like their traditional run of like early manga run focus chapters, which they have all been nicely pairing into separate chapters, separate episodes, right?
Yeah, with a little sprinkling of Shima's backstory.
Right. The enigma that is Sosuke Shima.
Yeah.
Sprinkled in.
As I pointed out last time,
is that the hot guy?
Yeah,
the himbo. Yes.
Yeah, the main guy is the only one that we never hear his like inner thoughts. Everybody else, we hear their inner thoughts, but not him.
You said he was like a child actor or something.
Yeah, and he gave it up because I guess he just doesn't want
because he just doesn't like it. Like,
yeah, he doesn't like it. He didn't like the pressure, and like, I think they're setting them up as sort of the contrast of like, the main girl is like hyper ambitious. I'm going to be prime minister, and he's like, I just want to chill, bro. I
mean, the thing in this show is that it really has a consistent through line in its theme for all the characters, because it's all about like perception and being perceived as a specific kind of person, while in reality you feel more multifaceted than that, and the pressure that comes with that. Because like the most recent episode was about Higashira, the quote unquote mean girl, who's like tries to be is like the popular superficial one, and it's about her like reckoning with the fact that is partly a disguise, that is like something she worked very hard to create for herself, because she used to be like she is not blessed in the looks department. She's someone who admits to, like, who says, I gain weight easily, so I always have to watch what I eat, or else I'll gain weight and people will make fun of me. I have to put a lot of effort into my hair and makeup to look like what people expect me to be, which is the popular girl,
right? Casually hot people that I'm hanging out with,
right. And then that also like contrasts with the fact that she has a crush on Shima, just like literally every other girl in the entire school,
right?
And how she tries to like reconcile that being with the whole thing of like, am I really superficial, or is this genuine, or is this also part of my, of course, the hot mean girl is in love with the hottest guy in school, right? And then they contrast that with like Yuzuki, the blonde girl, who is like effortlessly hot, but is definitely not that archetype of like the outgoing mean girl, and she's more like way more considerate and just like kind of nice.
She's kind of like girl Shima, honestly, but
yeah. She's like just chill, and then you have like the student council treasurer girl, who very much has a similar thing going on, and it's our main character Mitsumi, who's like the complete opposite of that, right? Because Mitsumi does not try to hide who she is. She is literally just a cringe overachiever, and because she admits that she is a cringe overachiever, everyone kind of appreciates her for her honesty. Like, the thing with Skip and Loafer is, this is a manga where the manic pixie dream girl is the main character. Like, she essentially serves as the manic pixie dream girl to many of these characters, except to Shima. And that is, like, also part of the reason why he likes hanging out with her. And the reason why he, like, his what the hell is going on with him is kind of like the central mystery. Because I've been catching up with the manga, and it's still not entirely clear. Like, you get a better grasp on how he thinks and why he is the way he is, but it's really interesting what they do with this character who, like, initially just seems like, generic nice shoujo boy, but also has that same thing going on of like, is his persona, his role, his stereotype that he plays in this story, is that who he actually is, or is that a role he puts on to, like, for the enjoyment of other people who expect that kind of role from him, right?
Yeah. It's probably not a coincidence that he was an actor, right? That's
right.
Make that his backstory, right? But yeah, I mean, that all probably makes it sound a little more serious than it probably is, but it's...
I'm an overanalyzer,
yes.
you know this,
no,
right?
It's all there. Like, that's all the things that are, like, kind of going on beneath the surface, right? That are all part of the show, and part of why I feel like this feels a little more substantial than your average, like, nice people being nice to each other show.
But this is prominently still,
nice people being nice to each other show. Like
yeah, right? Because I would say, like, that show's got all this going on.
Yeah, because like, especially, even like the girl you're talking about before, who, in episode 1,
like, her quote unquote bullying is like the tamest, like, girls being catty stuff you can imagine. Yeah.
Even she gets her sort of like sympathetic episode, right, where like, she could have easily been a throwaway, like the antagonist in the first episode or whatever, but they kind of make her part of the group still.
Yeah, she's in the squad, and that's the thing. Like, even when they because like that's the thing that they. I don't know if you've ever heard this, but it's a common saying that is often applied to children's television. And people say it's every Garden of Eden needs a snake, right? You can't make a like perfect world where everyone is nice to each other. There always has to be like a grumpy, mean person. Like in Sesame Street, there's Oscar the Grouch. There always has to be like a mean guy to like make or like highlight the fact that everyone is nice to each other. And
every Earth house needs a choo-choo.
Right. So in every, like in Skip and Loafer, that's not really one person. Like usually it's Makoto, like the glasses girl, who is being just like a stereotypical demotivated nerd.
They all take turns.
All of these characters will have like little tiny flaws that make them more human than the like very saccharine moe style that we're used to from anime. And I think that's part of the reason why the show is less saccharine, even though it is very much a show about nice people being nice and like having a soft good time.
Yeah, and I think it also just it keeps the energy up a little more.
Right. Also, a good contender for the faces, especially in the latest episode.
A lot of very good anime faces in this show as well. Yeah. So
also excellent performances. Like Mitsumi is Tomeo Kurosawa, who is pretty much one of the best voice actresses of her generation. She's Kinuko in Sound Euphonium, among others, and she just always turns in the like greatest over the top yet like unapologetically gremlin-y performances.
Yep, that's another very good role with Kiriko.
Kumiko, that's her name.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Kumiko. Yeah. I don't know. That's been a long time.
Floof from Sound Euphonium.
Yeah. All right. So that's still having fun with that one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's come back to a show we haven't talked about in a little while because it's been airing since last season.
And now for something completely different.
What, the Vinland Saga is not nice people being nice to each other? I thought it was about farming.
No need for first impressions or wrap ups. Vinland Saga has just continued to be here the whole time.
Yes, yeah. So now that we're back to our regularly scheduled talking about anime, how are things going with Vinland Saga?
Oh baby, they're going.
A lot of things have gone down. So from the last time we talked about Vinland Saga, I believe we had left off on the episode where Thorfinn resolves to uphold pacifism as his new like sort of ideological tenet going forward. Right?
Feels like so long ago now.
I know, right? And it's sort of meant to be a very like self-affirming moment, right? That Thorfinn, the little Viking ninja, who was murking dudes left and right in season 1 has achieved, self-actualization, right? And the thing that Vinland Saga like does so well is like the following episodes are basically all about how the myriad conflicts that are spurred on this is a Viking story, but really in any medieval society, are spurred on by like a combination of interlocking like social obligations and expectations, and the ways in which people will act because of those societal expectations.
Got a nice little segue there from Skip and Loafer, huh?
So for example, Thorfinn and Einar continue working on the plot of land that has been, sort of loaned out to them by their master Kettle. And, years have passed and like they've harvested from it multiple years now. They have seen the fruits of their labor. And in recognition of their efforts, Kettle is offering to make them freed men by the end of the year, essentially, with the offer to even employ them as proper landed employees of his plantation.
Oh boy, sharecropping.
Tenant farmers.
Essentially, yes, that they will be upgraded to tenant farmers, which, again, in this sort of medieval society, going from slave to tenant farmer is a tremendous upgrade, if even just for the part where your bodily autonomy is not
right
by default the property of another human being. And this is immediately contrasted with Arnheid, the female slave that Thorfinn and Einar have befriended over the years, who Kettle has taken a liking to over the years, and she has become his favorite attendant,
nighttime companion.
Yes, bedtime companion, right? And
we can do the math, on that one.
And there is the unspoken reality that there is no path to freedom for someone like Arnheid. Even in the realms of chattel slavery, there are the slaves who have it slightly better than the others, right? In many ways, Thorfinn and Einar are, as far as slaves go, privileged to even have the option to work for their freedom.
Right.
Because there's nothing obligating Kettle to allow that arrangement to happen.
Exactly.
This is like the house slave versus field slave thing you often see in stories about American slavery, right?
Right. Though in some ways, funnily enough, reversed, right? Because in this situation, the house slave is the one who has no hope of ever escaping. And so we kind of leave it on this note when then Kettle is summoned back to I think to Denmark.
Denmark,
where King Canute is preparing his plans to continue his conquest of England. And King Canute is also beginning to find himself increasingly burdened by, heavy is the head that bears the crown, right? And King Canute is intentionally contrasted with Thorfinn in the sense that these two characters, one a king, one a slave, look at the state of the world and say, it cannot stay like this. Something must change. And Thorfinn's conclusion is to resolve to a life of pacifism, to reduce the amount of harm he commits to the world. King Canute also looks at the state of the world and comes to the conclusion, I must commit as much violence and backstabbing as possible to create a more just world than the one I inherited. And so we see King Canute, engaging in a lot of dirty king shit. He poisons his own brother. He is doing a lot of backroom politicking, making deals with various landed lords, to gain their support in his upcoming war effort. And finally, he decides that to essentially forcefully seize Kettle's land. He needs food, he needs crops, he has an army to feed, and basically decides, well, shit, either I can cut a deal with this dude, but honestly, just taking taking his land would be a lot easier.
Right, I'm the king, I don't need to make deals.
Exactly, right? And so King Canute basically puts Kettle in a Kobayashi Maru, a political and societal situation in which it is impossible for him to win. And the long and short of it is that Kettle's sons are involved in the murder of some of King Canute's men. But King Canute basically set this up from the beginning. Basically the situation was either Kettle's sons endure humiliation and disgrace, and as, proper Norse men, this would essentially be social suicide, or fight back and harm men who are loyal to the king, and thus a different form of social suicide. And yeah, it's very much one of those things of again, we see people here who, regardless of their principles or morality, and I'm not going to say that Kettle's sons are particularly good people, but they too are locked in a situation where they must uphold the expectations and tenets of the society they belong to.
And like, there's a thread through here of like, stuff is only convenient for these constructs are only used as long as they're convenient, because like Kettle's son is like, this was a fair duel, everybody saw it, he insulted my honor, and so I killed him. And like, we all know that this is how it works, even though on paper I'm not supposed to do it. We all do it, but then the guards can say, well, you're not supposed to do it, so you're in trouble now.
Right, that is the important distinction to be made here, right? Is that these societal expectations are leveraged most harshly when it is most convenient for the people in power to do so. Mm-hmm. And you might think, boy, so now just before Thorfinn and Einar are to be freed, King Canute is seizing their lands, and I don't think he is going to suddenly uphold any agreement, any non-legally binding agreements Kettle may have made, before losing his land, or insulting the king in this case. And you might think, man, this sure is becoming a bit of a complicated situation, isn't it? And then we meet Garter.
Yep.
Garter is an escaped slave who has risen in rebellion against his master, Spartacus style. He has murdered his owner, and he has fled his lands. And we find out that Garter is Arnhide's former husband, before the two had been enslaved and separated. And now he is on the hunt for his enslaved wife. And this gets into a new set of societal complications in the world of Vinland Saga, because the long and short of it is Garter finds out where Arnhide is being kept. But we find out that Arnhide is pregnant with Kettle's unborn child. And now Arnhide is caught in maybe the absolute worst possible situation, where her former husband, the man she loved before they were separated and enslaved, has come back, hungry for revenge and eager to free her. But the reality is, she has made a new life for herself on Kettle's plantation. It is not necessarily an easy life or a good life, but it is a new status quo that she has come to accept. And now here is a man from that old life that threatens to upend that status quo in the most violent way possible. And now we have another character who is caught in a lose-lose situation. There is no way out for Arnhide. Either she goes with her husband and becomes a fugitive, likely to be hunted down and murdered by her owner, or she ignores the man she once truly loved in exchange for the more, for the time being, safer status quo that she has found herself in now. And it doesn't go well for anybody.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say, these are all lose-lose situations, right? I mean,
yes. And that's sort of the recurring theme that Vinland Saga is enforcing now, is that no matter where you are in this violent feudal society, no matter where you live, whether you are a king or a slave, we are all trapped by our societal obligations. And it's going to take someone truly driven, truly principled, to look at the state of this world and ask, what can we do differently? And the trials that Thorfinn is about to endure are sort of going to be the things that make or break that conviction, I guess. And I don't know, man. It's like, I say it every week, right? Like, it is astounding how good this show is. Like, the latest episode of Vinland Saga is entirely devoted to the interiority of a dying man. Like,
right.
Like the full 20 minutes. The full 20 minutes are just devoted purely to a man reflecting on the decisions he's made in his life that have led him to his current predicament, and the regrets he has, the clarity he has gained too late to utilize effectively. like looking back on the victories and defeats and wondering where things could have gone differently, and finally the resigned acceptance that he will never be able to make up for the mistakes that he's made. And dog, that's just a full episode of this show, and it's not even a main character.
That's a lot. That's a lot to take in.
Dude.
Even just like talking about it,
Vinland Saga is really good. I cannot stress it enough.
That's a lot of weight to carry.
Yeah.
And that was, and like all the Garter stuff is like, even in the context of the show, it's almost a side story, right? Because we all know that the Canute stuff is over the sea, coming like on its way, but man, they don't know that. They just have to deal with this stuff right now. That's the biggest problem they've had to face for years.
Right, like Thorfinn, Einar, and Arnheid are, as of the latest episode, going through what they think has been the worst day in their life. And their worst day is actually like 3 days down. It's a magnificent show. The way it just compounds its struggle and hardships to like really push these characters to like places that you just never could have foreseen in season 1.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, as like, I don't know, as heavy and kind of depressing as that all sounds, I feel like from what you've told me, it's like the message is still there, right? That keeps it from being just like total, just hopeless, like misery porn, right? Like, yeah. So, I already. How have you felt about this?
I mean,
you want to add?
You had it covered. I don't have anything else to add to that.
You're going to second all that.
Yeah. It's good.
Well, someday I need to watch this before we reach our end of the year, our top 10, right?
Mm.
Yeah, it's a big ask to watch like a full 2 seasons of a show, but like I really do think that Vinland Saga will definitely come up in the conversation. I think this year, like this is its time.
Yeah,
it's really good.
Yeah. Well, if we get another bad season in summertime, maybe we'll catch up. Somehow this season I'm finding myself watching like 6 shows or something, which
I know, right?
A lot. I usually don't watch more than like 3, maybe 4, and but it'd be nice to get there at some point. All right.
Okay.
Let's talk about Oshi no Ko.
Well, how about this one?
Requirements and expectations.
So, this has been. I find it very funny that Aqua, from what you've told us, this show is somewhat in response to Aka Akasaka's experience having his manga turned into a live action drama, and we immediately dive into a story about a manga getting turned into a live action drama,
which by the way is as far as I know the same shoujo manga that is the subject of a joke in Kaguya-sama.
Okay, yeah, I feel like that sounded familiar to me from somewhere. Like I just did not do the
day
research.
Will be sweet.
It's like a love touch scenario.
Is that from the episode where like fucking Ishigami is like twisting himself into a pretzel to like deny that he's an otaku or whatever?
Right. Yes.
He's like, no, I don't read that manga. Well, okay, I guess I do because it's in the magazine that I get or whatever.
Yeah.
Yes, that is the one. And also the actress girl who shows up in the latest episode of Oshi no Ko, Frill Shiranui. I think she is also referenced in...
Frill?
Yes. I mean, it's a stage name, right?
Oh, okay.
Which is also referenced in Kaguya-sama.
Oh, okay. That I didn't catch.
Yeah.
Well...
So, it's just funny to me that we dive right into that immediately, and perhaps not so kind things to say, because that is, again, the number one purpose of Oshi no Ko is to be critical of the Japanese entertainment
industry, yeah.
And that's sure what they dive right into, because this show is hot garbage, apparently, being marred by directors only caring about propping up the latest pretty boy, hot model guy who can't act but he's pretty and we have to promote him. So
yeah, and it's a finished manga, so like there's no point in like really putting in any effort, because like there's no product to sell here anyway, so
yes.
It's just a vehicle for the actors. And
it sounds very cynical, but I'm sure it's very realistic, right? Like this is a money-making machine.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
we're after this on the list is Tokusatsu, which just does that all the time.
Right.
Yeah. So,
but the thing is, like, what I do like about this is that the directors and producers of that show, or of like the show in the show, right, are not necessarily portrayed as like malicious people or people who have like who don't know what real art is.
They're still doing the best they can.
Doing their jobs. They're doing the best they can, right?
They are doing our jobs, right? Like
they're working with what they got. Yeah.
I think to the show's credit, I'm not sure if people will agree with me on this, but I think it's fairly obvious, at least in my interpretation, also knowing the rest of the manga, is that like Aqua is not necessarily being portrayed as being in the right here. Like, he talks as if he knows everything about what real art and what real stardom is like, and like all these posers, they don't know anything, and like, she was a real idol and everyone else is just a pretender. But like, what we know about Ai is that she was like someone who was in a way talented, but she was absolutely not this like
she was faking
specimen. It too. Right, she was faking it too. She was not, the super goddess that Aqua props her up to be. Right.
This guy just simped so hard that he got her as her child. Like,
right.
It's not exactly objective on the matter.
Right.
So this is where I'm gonna say, all right, Aqua, I'm going to assume you are speaking from like foreknowledge you have about. Oh boy, this is gonna get confusing. I'm just gonna refer to him as Aquamarine going forward.
Aquamarine, yes.
To make this less confusing for this podcast. Yeah. But I'm going to assume you were speaking with foreknowledge about Aquamarine's characterization and his portrayal, because
he's an insufferable prick, right?
Yeah, because I'm gonna say Aquamarine is really the make or break point for this show for me personally. Like, it did not really hit me in the first episode, because I guess he was yes, he was an adult, but he was in the body of a dumb baby, and so it did not really bother me that he talked like a fucking prick. But like, now that he is an annoying high schooler, I'm like, God damn it, I can't stand this dude. Like, I do not care for him as a protagonist.
Yeah, your interpretation. Yeah, your interpretation based on what we've seen in the anime so far. I was not getting those vibes at all. Like, he still feels like
Aquamarine is portrayed as in the right in the anime, at least so far.
He feels like, and I'm going to preface my comments on the show because I feel like a lot of this is going to come down to my personal preference, and not necessarily that the show is bad, but he is a type of character that I've grown to really hate, where he feels he feels like the super
anime
genius,
smart person,
anime smart guy that's one step ahead of everybody.
Yeah,
and he manipulates the scene because he knows how to psychologically manipulate the dumb pretty boy actor, and I really don't.
Right, like if we want to use a direct comparison, for example, the reason why Shirogane works in Kaguya-sama is because despite all the talk you hear about his intelligence and talent, the man has the emotional intelligence of a rock, and like is like hilariously bad at like extremely basic tasks, right? Like singing and dancing and volleyball and rapping.
Yes.
And so I think that's a thing, right? Is like in a lot of ways, Shirogane almost felt like an intentional poking at that trope, right? Of like, here's your hyper competent cool guy, but actually
like,
he's a complete
light Yagami guy. Yeah.
Whereas I feel like Aquamarine is almost, at least right now, again, based on the like 34 episodes we've seen, feels like an unironic execution of that character trope. Which
I will.
So is this like a difference in adaptation type thing?
No, not necessarily, because I share all of your concerns, and I also cannot, with certainty say, oh, he gets better. Like, no, because even like 100 chapters into the manga, it is still not entirely clear whether, as we have been discussing, Aquamarine is supposed to be like a pretentious asshole, or the super smart, brilliant manipulator. And occasionally his manipulations have consequences, but then occasionally he's also in the right, and it's odd because I get the feeling, and you also already see that in these episodes where you see the seeds of that. It's like that. I think the manga is trying to have its cake and eat it too, as in like it's pointing at him and being like, get a load of this guy, but also he's pretty cool, right? And it will occasionally pay lip service to the fact that the way he does things is patently ridiculous. But on the other hand, he is not what I would call a satire of that anime character, of that archetype. He is that archetype. Like, he is the brooding the brooding manipulator who's always one step ahead of everyone. And if the chickens are really going to come home to roost to him on that, it certainly hasn't happened yet. Like,
the only thing I would kind of say in support of that is, and this is probably one of my like favorite aspects of these two episodes, is when we do get into like the few and far between moments where we get back into the murder mystery aspect of this, we kind of see his like how obsessive and like kind of crazy he is about this. Like when it like the unlocking the phone thing, where like, he spent years trying different numbers to find the password.
But the thing is, like, this show was set up as a murder mystery. It's not that. Like, it's,
I was going to get to that.
It is predominantly a critique of the entertainment industry.
That's my other.
Occasionally, the murder mystery will be a hook that will get them from one corner of the industry to another one.
Yeah, so that's like, kind of my other.
I was in a play once, so this producer of plays may be my father. So let's audition for a play, and then there will be a whole arc about how the theater industry is fucked, and then
the Takazuka review is out to kill you.
Yeah.
So that's my other thing that I also feel like comes down to maybe personal preference here, but like, I was hoping that there'd be more of a balance between those two things. Like, again, I understand what we're here for. This is primarily more than anything supposed to be the critique of the Japanese.
But I mean,
but I feel like
the show's detriment, and to your credit, like the show has taken a pretty damn long time to get where it wants to be, right?
Yeah, so like these two,
on the way there, it has been a gazillion other things, and I can't blame anyone for wanting it to have been one of those things, right?
Yeah, because so like these last two episodes primarily focus on obviously the drama, Aquamarine joining the drama primarily because we run back into what's her name, Kana
Arima, best character.
The child actress that he met years ago, who's kind of become a bit washed up, and she's slumming it in this awful drama, right? And a lot of the episode is just like long monologues about acting, and I'm like, from her or whoever, and I'm like, I don't like this. and it's not that it's necessarily bad, and I'm sure there are people who were like kind of more interested in that than I am, but like it's like I got sucked into this show from the first movie episode, whatever we want to call it, because that was such a like emotional, intense sort of experience, and we've gone from that to long monologues about good and bad acting, and I'm like,
right.
Okay, what if you ever have a situation where your first episode was too good?
I mean, that's that. I think you hit the nail on the head, right? Because that's like I've said this before, right? I am up to date with the Oshinoko manga, but I don't know if it's good. But it certainly is interesting, because whenever you think it's stagnating with the navel gazing entertainment industry critique, it will do something like shocking, or it will have like a comedy chapter that is something straight out of Kaguya-sama, or it will introduce an interesting character, or it will have like a fascinating insight on a topical issue. And it feels very like stream of consciousness almost. Like this manga is clearly like Aka Akasaka's like I'll just do whatever. His like outlet to like his outlet to comment on current affairs, like his the place where he will use jokes that don't fit into Kaguya-sama. The like it's his whatever. It's where he throws things at the wall and see what sticks, right? And sometimes that is like puerile. Oh, I'm so much smarter than everyone else, and this industry is rotten to the core, and then we're all just liars wearing masks. And occasionally that's like, here's a baby doing the idol dance. Like,
yeah,
it's a very strange property, but I appreciate it for existing. Like,
yeah, I do. That is kind of what I want to hear, and that I hope there are more big shakeups on the horizon, because I feel like if we stayed on our current pace for another couple episodes, right, you'd start to lose me here. But
like I quite like the upcoming arc, but it is very much like my shit. Like, it is like sort of dark psychological stuff, like that touches upon
Scum's Wish type.
Scum's Wish, like real
Flowers of Evil.
Not necessarily, but it feels like for the first time the Oshinoko actually like touches upon its themes of like the difficulties of celebrity and the responsibility that the industry has in protecting its stars from those consequences.
Right. Is there like a clear stopping point for a season 1? Like,
I mean, it's an arc-based manga, but I would be surprised that with the current pacing, they would stop at the end of that arc. So it will probably be like that arc and then a bit of spinning its wheels, but I'm not sure they can do the arc after that. But yeah. I mean, this thing already has season 2. I mean, it's not announced yet, but this thing will get a second season because it's enormously popular. So,
right,
like,
yeah. I don't know. Like, even just like as I'm thinking about it, like in the first episode, even it was just like the concept of like an idol having to balance having 2 secret children. Like, even that's more interesting to me than acting. Acting stuff.
Yeah, like I said, this show has been a gazillion things on its way to getting where it wants to be, and I cannot fault anyone for wanting to have it to have been one of those things instead.
But I do agree with you too, Aqua. I appreciate they're trying stuff, right? Like,
I mean, this all has to come with the disclaimer that I'm a dumb, edgy theater kid, so this stuff is catnip for me. But I can totally understand why other people are like, oh my god, it's just acting, behave like a normal person.
G, did you have anything else you wanted to add on it from your
not particularly. I mean, I guess I do want to make it clear, right? I mean, I am still watching this show, and I think I'm still broadly interested in wanting to see where it goes. So I think if at least the way Jill and I are talking, I mean, sounds like particularly critical. I think it is more just due to how strong it starts, right? Like,
and also because
as I was joking, sometimes you could have a first episode that's too good, right?
Yeah, I mean, fair, definitely. But also, like, these last couple of episodes have been fairly Aquamarine centric, and
yes,
he is just that character, and you need to have a tolerance for him. And like, if there's anything this has in common with Kaguya-sama, is that it does character like development relatively well, or at least you get a good insight into the characters, except for maybe Aqua, who is just that guy. But like there's other characters who get some like fun, interesting stuff to do, especially Kana. Like I said, she was the best character, and I stand by it. Like, she gets some fun stuff to do, because I just like cynical, bitter assholes, and that's what she is.
I'm assuming they're gonna get back to like Ruby's story and all that too. So like those other things.
Ruby being out of focus is kind of a running joke. Like,
is that the twin?
She's the comic relief for most. Like, she's become more prominent in the plot only recently in the manga, but like she's mostly there for the like more lighthearted bits. Like, she gets her focus bits. Like, she's your forger, they only cart her out to do like goofy bits.
Oh no.
The curse, the jump female character curse.
Well, I'll stick with this now. I feel like I'm hanging more onto the, like, right now I'm sticking with it on the potential more than me playing the past couple of episodes, which is a dangerous place to be, but we'll see.
To quote the great philosopher Zig, I would rather have a show that is interesting than a show that is boring.
Yes, of course.
Right.
All right. Well,
all right.
Let's take an anime break here.
Speaking of shows that are interesting.
Toku time.
Let's take a tokusatsu break. What do we got going on these days?
Oh my goodness! I mean, we haven't checked in with Geats in a long time.
Yes.
So Geats, KingOhGer Geats, his whole setup is they're finding some interdimensional battle royale reality show for 4-dimensional beings or whatever who are from the future and are observing this entertainment in much the same way we would enjoy, like, I don't know, a pirate movie or a kung fu movie or something.
Right. But the thing is, like, the show has done various arcs that are distinctly different seasons of this reality show
of the Desire Grand Prix.
Right. So like every 9 episodes will be like a single season, and at the end there is a winner, and the winner gets to make a wish to essentially like rewrite the world, and that becomes the setting for the next season of the Desire Grand Prix. But the Desire Grand Prix has a bit of a problem, because for the past 2,000 years, the same dude has been winning, and that dude is Kamen Rider Geats.
Yes. Through multiple loops of this reality show, and through the villains getting their hands on the control buttons, basically, so that they make a season where their job is to just kill everything, and the heroes have to just stop them.
They hijack the show, basically. Because
Kamen Rider Geats. Go ahead.
Because there are sponsors from in the audience. There are sponsors, and all the different contestants have a sponsor who will buy cool power-ups for them to use in the game.
Yep.
But there is also
your favorite Kamen Rider.
Right, but there is also a hilariously evil goth GF who is a sponsor of the NPC monsters, and she manages to steal the control buttons, as Iro said, and basically, turn the show on its head, where the NPC monsters become the participants and the Kamen Riders become the disposable bait.
Yeah. And so the plot is sort of trended into a maybe this entire construct is bad in the first place, because it just facilitates a bunch of evil shit,
And there are victims, and people lose their memories, and it's very easily exploitable. And it's very obvious that these people from the future do not see the participants in the show as fully human, because they're from the past, so they can freely affect the past however they want.
And
it won't really have repercussions or anything. And they do some interesting things with that. I mean, this is a Toku show, so it's always kind of falling apart as it goes along. But this show has been doing a pretty good job at using interesting twists and interesting spins on the formula to keep itself going, right?
Right. What I thought was most intriguing was because people who make a wish, they can rewrite reality, and they have implied a few times that people have used the wish to like get children when they couldn't previously, and stuff like that. And so one character who is the main girl in the cast, who's a streamer, part of her backstory is that she was kidnapped when she was very young, and that's why like her parents are way overprotective of her now.
Because she's also like an heiress of a rich conglomerate like business.
And it is revealed that when that girl was kidnapped, that girl was killed by that kidnapper 10 years ago or whatever. And what her parent...
On-screen body bag containing the dead body of a child being loaded into a ambulance in this kids show.
Right, and so like you think it's just gonna be like, oh, and so they wished to bring her back to life, and so she's like a revived person. But no, they explained that her father was like, well, I won't be able to love a fake daughter now that I know she's dead in the same way. So what I'll do is I'll wish for a better, perfect daughter who will be a better heir to my conglomerate to take her place.
That always works.
And so that happens. She has to confront that being a construct, right? Basically, not even like a real person.
But they do other interesting things. Like at some point, of course, our main Kamen Rider gets his cool power up that allows him to defeat the villain, but instead of it being like a dumb Deus Ex Machina where it's like, oh, the power of his conviction gives him a new toy, instead it's like
literally
well, I mean, the thing is like he gets it randomly and everyone is like, where does that thing come from? And like it turns out that like 500 years ago when he won the Desire Grand Prix, one of the many times when he won, he wished for like, if I ever get in trouble in the future, please send me a cool power-up.
Basically, right. Yeah. Geats is revealed to be like every reincarnated person. He's lived for 2,000 years. Every time he dies, he will eventually come back to life. And because his very first wish was to always allow me to participate in the Desire Grand Prix, anytime he is reborn, he participates in the Desire Grand Prix again.
Yep.
There's a non-zero chance he's Jesus.
Let's go over the evidence. His mother is a goddess. He is 2,000 years old. He was alive during the time of the Romans, which is very funny because they dress a bunch of like Japanese idols up in Roman centurion gear. He was conceived via Immaculate Conception. He is very powerful and cannot die, and there is a very likely chance that he might end up on a cross because that's a Kamen Rider staple.
Well, I mean, I think it's fun. I think it's funny to keep saying, Kamen Rider Geats, Jesus of Nazareth. Yeah,
he is my Jesus in any case.
We're like 2/3 to 3/4 through that show now.
Yeah.
The current situation is the angry character,
rival,
the edgelord rival has gotten his hands on the controls, and he said, I'm making it a true blue battle royale where I'm gonna hunt down all of you other Kamen Riders and kill you all because I think you suck. His whole
And
goal
he's
is
not
to
wrong.
his whole goal is to tear down the system, right? And like
Mhm.
he doesn't care who gets in his way.
Mhm.
As long as you're a Kamen Rider, he'll kill you.
Yep.
Until he's the last Kamen Rider, and then he'll probably kill himself or something.
Yep, that makes
Who
sense.
knows?
But yeah, I mean, that's like they keep finding interesting twists and like fun little details, and they seem to know what the audience wants, which is pretty good. Also, the action choreography has been really rather good. Like
compared to the past few,
yeah, they do some cool like gun kata. They do some cool flips and kung fu shit and like practical effects. They finally know how to use that dumb GoPro they bought a couple of years ago to do like cool things, like they slap it onto someone's sword and then film sword cam and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
The image quality is absolutely atrocious, but that's Toku, baby.
So this is a good Kamen Rider?
So far, yeah, compared to the past few, which were like, I think,
garbage,
truly miserable.
Yes.
Kamen Rider Saber and Kamen Rider Revice were just interminable, right? Hated that shit.
The thing is, Kamen Rider has been changing a lot in recent years because it simply isn't popular enough to maintain the formula. And the formula is Monster of the Week.
Right.
The thing is, they don't have money anymore to make a new monster every week.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the recent shows have been switching to, what if we just put all of our monster budget into making more Kamen Rider characters, and we'll just have them fight each other, because that way we can sell more toys, because monsters don't sell toys, but Kamen Riders do, right? And these last two shows, Saber and Revise, had a bunch of like hackneyed excuses to make the same people fight each other over and over and over again. Whereas this show had the brilliant idea of, let's make that the premise of the show. So,
like, create an actual premise where they are fighting each other. But yeah, I think it's been good so far. I don't think it's been like transcendent or anything.
No, it's a bit messy. Like
they've all been such a mess, right?
Yes, that's the thing, right? These are 52 episode shows that are written on the fly, that are made on a very tight schedule. Whenever an actor is like, "Hey, I got a deal to be in this other show," they have to write him out of the show. Like it's essentially fiction. Or it's speculative fiction written as if it's a soap opera. Like that's, and I'm not necessarily talking about the style, even though it's stylistically very close to soap opera as well. But mostly like behind the scenes, how it is produced. It's much tighter, much like chasing its own trends, trying to fix its own like the response to
the
things
problems it's made by not being planned out.
So if Kamen Rider's good, does that mean Super Sentai has to be bad?
Usually,
that's the real question here.
That's the rule. That's usually the rule. I'm very interested in Royal Sentai KingOhGer, which is the current Aryan Super Sentai, because it's so different from other Sentai. Like, it doesn't take place on Earth
or something.
It doesn't take place on Earth, right? Like, they're on another world, and so it's all. There's a lot more green screen and stuff, and what they're doing is, the late newer Star Wars stuff. They have that like set
wraparound green screen set.
It's not It's not even a wraparound green screen. It's just a wraparound monitor, right?
Right.
Instead of a green screen, and so they're using very similar stuff for this show. To do a lot of crazy backgrounds and shit.
Allegedly, the show costs 1 million yen per episode, which I don't believe. But it allows the show to be way more ambitious. It doesn't necessarily look better than it would if they just worked with sets.
No,
I mean, it looks significantly worse.
Looks like ass, yeah.
But it does allow them to do crazy things, because usually, like, when you have a Super Sentai show that is set in space, like, they will have like a spaceship set, and then in like episode 5 they'll be like, oops, we crash landed on Earth, and now everything that happens takes place in like the same 5 locations in Tokyo where everything in Toku happens. But like this, now they can actually like have different settings and like fantastical realms and weird places where this action can take place. So it changes the show with it, and that whereas Sentai for the last 15 years has basically been an ensemble comedy, like there's a goofy monster that does something silly, like, I don't know, switch people's bodies or replace all of the chicken in the world with salmon or steal birthdays or and then shenanigans occur, and in the end they fight the monster. This seems to be like a genuine attempt at like making a continuous plot,
like
high fantasy thriller.
It's like the main character, because all the Rangers are kings of their own little realms. They're all the sovereigns of their own realms, and they're kind of at each other's throats, because the current Red King, this asshole Red King, is like, I'm not renewing our mutual protection pact because I want to have control over the Megazord.
Right.
And they're all like, well, screw you. And so the actual Red Ranger who appears, who is like the long-lost prince of the Red Kingdom, and he has the power. He also has the like royal authority to control the Megazord, and he just wants to like oust the Red King because he's like, this guy's an asshole, we should get rid of him.
Right, but he becomes this pawn in this
political
and so
chess game. All these other characters are like, well, we can move this guy around because he controls the Megazord and use him for our own ill-gotten gains. For various
all the while there are monsters that are trying to destroy the world. But it's like surprisingly low on silly episodic shenanigans, and it's like straight up just like arc plots, like drama show, like things happening.
I mean, that concept in another setting would sound very interesting to me, but I'm assuming at the end of the day this is still a kid show, right? So
I mean,
but it can be surprisingly like weighty in like the dialogue and I mean, compared to other Sentai, grading on a curve, right? Grading on a curve. But the thing is, like, this is, even I sometimes struggle to entirely know what's going on and what people's motivations are, and that certainly is, like, you could have a character who's like playing both sides, and in this show they will not look into the camera and say, I am playing both sides, like,
right, they will just have like you will just have seen them make their machinations.
Kids these days are just ready for some political drama.
I know,
I guess.
Right. But the thing is, like, there's still some of that like fun, colorful Sentai comedy in there. Like, they have a fun cast of characters. Like, the Blue Ranger is the
delinquent tech bro.
The king of delinquent gamer land. They're all like, like traditional Japanese delinquents, but they're also all gamers and hackers. So whenever they start infighting, they have hacker duels. So they will both like take out a laptop and start like pressing buttons to see who can hack the hardest.
As they comb their pompadours.
Right. Very good.
And then like, curious how the show will pan out, because it is just so different from a quote-unquote normal Sentai. And I mean, Sentai has been in a more precarious position than Kamen Rider,
right? Because it doesn't have the iconic because we know Power Rangers, but in Japan Kamen Rider has way more cultural cachet than Super Sentai, right?
So I don't know, it hasn't been bad so far. It's been interesting. It hasn't been like it's not been one that's like grabbed me instantly. I think.
But the robot fights are good because they have more than one set. Like they have like
True.
cool robot sets for all of the different kingdoms with like tiny buildings that they can trash, which is fun.
We complained several years ago about Ryu Soldier because the directing was really good, but then the writing was very dull.
Bad. Yeah.
And this show has the same director as that, but a writer who is a different
more competent.
writer. Right. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
But
I guess
it's
we'll
very funny because at this point we're like cheering whenever they go to a quarry.
Oh, now you missed.
It's like, oh, finally,
Now you missed the
a-
quarry.
Right. Yeah.
finally
yeah.
a fucking on location shoot.
Grass is always greener, huh? Yeah.
Just like Star
Yeah.
Wars, right, everybody?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. All right.
Uh,
Well,
God.
yeah.
sounds
Yeah.
like
Shout out to the Purple Ranger, Millennial Ranger.
Yeah.
Their whole thing is like that they're the judge of all the realms, but they hate their job, and so they sometimes will just start screaming randomly because they're so frustrated
yeah.
and roll around on the floor
making me
being
work.
depressed. Yeah.
Same.
Uh,
Same.
So yeah,
All right.
we're only a few episodes in, and Sentai is always a long haul. So
Yeah.
We'll
we'll
see
check
how that's
in again
going
in another
next.
3 months.
next time we have a
To see if
Tokusatsu
they still have
update.
enough money to do all the realms, or if they have crash landed on Earth at this point.
Yeah, we'll find out.
to
I
bring
could have sworn it would have happened by now.
Yeah.
to bring it full circle. Honkai Star Rail is the first time I've ever seen the word tokusatsu spoken in an English localized video
wow.
game. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Alrighty.
Okay, so every time we've started one of these podcast episodes this season, there's a fire that starts burning inside of me,
Mhm.
and you know, every minute that goes by that I'm not talking about Birdie Wing Golf Girl story, I get more and more fired up, more and more tense. I can't hold back anymore, and we gotta talk about Birdie Wing.
Oh hell yeah, we do.
The Venus line.
Let me just start before we get into the details and say that I enjoyed our time in Tokyo. I
Mhm.
think it was a valuable addition to the show. and
Yeah.
I'm glad it happened. However,
Mhm.
The Fress
Our
is where
time-
the show belongs.
our time in Fresse, it just hits different.
We've been
Yeah.
here for like an episode and a half, and yeah, I don't want to leave anymore.
It hits different. So as we knew was going to happen, I guess Eve doesn't technically get deported, but the Golf Zaibatsu forcibly
Yes.
brings her to the
Ejects her.
airport and forces
She's
her
like,
to leave.
"You're deported," and then she's like, "No, I'm not," and then she still leaves.
Yeah. So, Eve goes back to Nefrese, and she, I guess, goes to visit her mother's grave. And now that she remembers who her mother is, where she runs into her old family butler, the Burton family butler.
Don't forget
And-
that she pays a visit to her weird aunt who's gone really into healing stones all of a sudden.
Yeah, don't forget
Yeah.
Vipera is back. You know,
Back.
Yes,
To be,
Vipera.
she's here to be Eve's chauffeur now that they're back in. She's
Yes.
back in the Fresse.
Happy housewife Vipera, who is now
The
wearing
most unhinged character in the show has become the most hinged.
wearing
Somehow.
sensible clothing and shacked up with her man on the yacht. Somehow comes out of retirement to help Eve get around. Yep, and
But
this leads to Eve. Once she meets the old butler guy, going to her grandfather, the head of the Burton family's house, in in the discussion for one of the best scenes of this
right. Well, I
block,
mean,
where-
the important thing to establish here, right, is we find out that not only was Eve's mom, the Burton family, like, important, that they were the family behind the de facto #1 European golf brand, right?
Yes.
Arios, right?
Arios.
Yes.
Which
I was
is a
about to say fucking
direct-
Ionios. I was like, that's
so this makes this not this is so now this makes Eve and Aoi's situation not just like star-crossed lovers on the like
no, it's Mafia versus Yakuza.
exactly right, because we also find out that the Burton families are also the most powerful golf mafia in Europe.
yes,
Yep.
more powerful than the mafia that is currently after Eve.
The nameless
Yes.
golf mafia, yeah.
Yeah, so she decides to cash in some chips and heads to Grandpa's house, where she literally just walks Grandpa's on Grandpa's on the golf course, and she just walks out of the bushes with her clubs and is like, "Shut up, you horny old man!" and starts playing
What's important
golf.
to establish here is that apparently, like, compensated golf dating is just a totally normal pastime for the wealthy and the fresse.
Yes. Right. And Grandpa's playing with some top lady player or something.
The number 8 golfer in Europe.
Yes. And she interrupts to basically enlist his help to become a pro golfer so that she can get back to Aoi. And it's all very good. I mean, Eve has so much big dick energy in this, for lack of a better term.
These 2 episodes just dunking on everyone.
and these 2 episodes, like the most like Giga Chad, whatever. But
right, I mean, it's that reminder, right? That like Eve, like
Gaijin Smash.
Yeah, I mean, well, she just has a natural knack for like dominating the spaces she's in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this has always been who she is at her best, right?
Yeah,
and what makes it so delightful is that she's all too aware of it, right? Like you know, all the low key like negging that Eve does to everybody around her. You're right. It's not even low key, right? You know, it's like when she meets Vipere for the first time, you know, when she's there to pick her up from the airport, right? And Eve is just straight up like, "Who are you again? I don't even remember you," right? And Vipere is like, "Are you fucking for real?" And Eve's like,
she did call her. Yes.
Yeah, right. And like, you know, Eve instantly has this response, shit, it's just because you look so much better now. Shit, yeah, I didn't even recognize you. Mm-hmm. And Vipere's like, all right, get in the car. And Eve's like, God, she's still too easy.
All just total forgetting everybody's name as a power move, you know.
Right.
exerting dominance.
There's only one name in her heart.
Yes.
And then, of course, we have the second set of episode here. The second episode of these 2, right, where basically she meets up with her grandpa, and her grandpa's like, "Now I could use my golf mafia influence to call off the hit on you, but I won't. You need to prove yourself, right?" And which of course gives us which of course gives us, you know, the amazing line, "Are you willing to risk your life for golf?" To which Eve replies, "What a dumb question."
Yes. Oh, save that screen cap of Grandpa
the most
saying that.
Self-evident thing, you know, just like, you know, I'm looking at Grandpa Burton here, and I'm like, you gotta keep up with the program, man. Like Eve was putting her she's putting her life on the line for golf since like episode 1.
Yeah.
The ultimate goal for both of our lives are on the line.
Yeah. That second episode where, you know, Eve basically goes back to was it Catherine, the head of the
Catherine, yes.
And Catherine has just gone full like psycho mode.
Yes, like all these fucking shots of just like Catherine's like unhinged faces when she pulls out the fucking piece.
Yeah.
And most importantly, in the face.
Most importantly, Eve calls in her caddy.
Yes.
Ride or Die Saotome.
Yep.
Who drops everything to go follow Eve to fight the golf mafia without questioning anything.
Right. She's like, "I'll be your caddy for life."
We also get that amazing dialogue where she tenders her resignation to Coach Amuro. And just saying the most ridiculous dialogue that's just so chef's kiss. But
also, the whole thing where she's like, "I didn't sign up for underground golf. What the hell is going on?" And then 5 minutes later, she's like, "Oh yes, well she's using magic sand to
the old sand trick."
Yeah,
yes. And she's like, "It's real hard to see if you haven't seen it before."
It's like,
she's an expert. Yeah.
Also, God, I almost forgot. Right, related to her tendering her resignation to Coach Amuro. Right. Once again, we just get the throwaway line where Amuro is like, "Do you even speak another language than Japanese?" And Ichida's like, "Yeah, don't worry, I learned English, and that's it. That's all you can say."
Would be a pro caddy in America, the land of golf.
So she has once again Eve has to do a 1-on-1 golf death match against Catherine's golfer of choice, who is what's her name, Romelda, I believe.
Yeah.
She is supposedly the top of not actually she's not only the top underground golfer, she's also the top overground golfer in America, supposedly. And yes, she does
She's
her.
what does that
even mean?
Yeah.
Also, it doesn't make any sense, right? Because we see that black lady golfer in the OP, and she seems to be framed as the most powerful pro. But
I think I don't think they said she was the top. I think they said she was a pro golfer, but also the top. I don't know if they specify that she was the top.
Maybe you're
golfer.
right. Yeah,
but
anyways, so once
she's very good. Is the point?
Well, because the important thing, right, is that Romelda brings back the gimmicks, right? Like we cut to her mind's eye where she sees herself as an operatic singer. Right.
Yes.
That everything she does is part of the theater, right? That she draws people into her performance, before, bringing the knife down on them, right? And
I still find it absolutely baffling about this show that all of the characters are so over the top, but their designs are just the most boring, plain thing ever. Except for Viper, who looks like she's from a completely different show.
Viper is the only golfer who looks like the type of freak show golfer that everybody in this show actually is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, as we've found out, once everybody gets stands, the people who don't have stands are going to lose. So,
we also, more importantly, find out that Romelda tried the same trick against Leo's new protege, Aisha, right? And was effortlessly seen through. Yes.
Leo, that's right. We'd have the bit where she finds out she figures out that Eve was trained by Leo, and she's like, "Oh, you need to double my money."
Yeah, exactly. Now, this is all it's very funny, right? Because Leo is that trick would never work against a real golfer. You're a fucking sham. Except then it is established that Ichina is the one who catches the trick, not Eve. Eve would have fallen for it.
Yes, Eve would have definitely fallen for it.
Because Eve is the dumbest person on the planet.
Caddy's part of the game.
So by Leo's standards, is Eve also not a real golfer then?
Yeah. No, but all of this is just this is like peak Birdie Wing, right? This is Birdie Wing totally off the rails, unhinged, melodramatic, stakes are high, life and death golf,
also, we finally see the last of the bullets, the indigo bullet, which
right. So, as was like a job for Aquaman.
Yeah, as was speculated, is the Aquaman / Getter 3 of the bullets, right? It is the water bullet. It is the skim it across the.
Very goofy to have this.
Yes,
only shown after she's already unlocked the ultimate rainbow shot.
Yeah, right. It's oh shit, we forgot that rainbows have 7 colors. Quick.
Have we
you beeline to the end of the tech tree? Now you're researching writing. Look,
have we actually seen all the
really wild thing? Right, is the indigo bullet is actually the bullet that Eve has shown that is maybe the most closely based on a real world golf shot.
Aside from hit ball hard.
I mean, they all
I don't know if it's legal, but I have seen a video of somebody do the exact same thing Eve has done, which is that they have to cross a water trap, and so rather than try to cross the distance, they skim it across the surface of the water, and it totally fucking works.
Yeah. Have we seen all the bullets?
That's 7 now, right?
That's 7, right? Is it? Shit.
So hang on. We got the blue bullet is her hit the ball far driver shot, right? Red bullet is the chip shot to get out of the bunker that goes straight up in the air, right? Isn't that red bullet?
Oh, I thought that was yellow bullet.
Okay,
right?
Hold on. There's
the deep Birdie Wing lore.
There's the screaming. There's the rising red bullet or whatever, right?
Whereas
red bullet, orange bullet is now
the
zone. Yeah,
in the zone. Yellow bullet was for the sand trap.
Okay.
Right. Green bullet is the putt.
Is putting.
Yep.
Right. Okay.
There were blue bullet's the drive. Right.
Right.
And
then just hit ball hard. Yeah.
Yeah. And
we got purple. We just got
the indigo. Bullet. Yeah, and then the violet, the Aoi violet bullet, which was the curve shot, right?
The slice, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then the rainbow shot as the ultimate ability. Okay.
Yeah.
What a
Very important.
what
Yeah,
a
look, you need to explain your magic system.
Yeah.
So where do we go from here? Or we're still basically on track for the Eve's Golf Mafia versus
Right.
Aoi's
The
Golf
next episode
Saibatsu, right?
the next episode preview looked to be a Aoi episode where she must level grind her new golf, right? She must master her new techniques.
Right.
She's
I mean, what we are
gain the wings of light.
What we are really gathering here is that we have a show about two lesbians sponsored by different powerful conglomerates who must unlock their true potential in a great final climactic battle. And the other show is Gundam, the witch from Mercury.
Yeah.
It's so I think we'll be trading off a bit here.
Yeah. So it does look like
there's a Eve episode, so that they can converge at the final tournament or whatever, and
finally play each other for real,
and then they can kiss.
Yeah, Aoi will win and get her kissu.
Oh, they're gonna have to tie or something, right? Like they can't.
I don't know, because they talked about like gold shining wings in the next episode preview, and like the last shot of the opening
of the OP.
is mysterious golfer with shining wings. So perhaps, who knows?
I mean, what if Eve wins, but Aoi still makes the same number of mistakes as her, so she still gets her kiss?
Sure, I could see that.
Yeah.
Why the hell not?
Good times. I hope we do get some more Golf Mafia hijinks before we get back into whatever mega tournament's going to end the show out.
I don't think Catherine's just going to let it go.
Yeah, she seems.
I mean, there are still a bunch of weird people in the OP we haven't seen yet.
There's so many people we haven't met yet. And Eve's gonna have to have her showdown with Aisha at some point, right, or whatever.
Right.
So we have so many plot threads we'll have to touch on. So good times.
Good times. Great show.
So good. All right, let's move along and talk about Heavenly Delusion. Or
just a quick breather in the middle here.
Yeah,
Tengoku and Daimakyo for people looking for it on Hulu.
Disney Plus, and you're in Europe,
or Disney Plus, and if you're in Europe. But yes, look for the Japanese name. A quick note: watching it on Hulu, I found it very funny that they did not sub anything after the credits rolled.
Whoops!
Latest episode. So I just kind of guessed on what was happening.
but the definitely legal version that we're watching does have all that subtitled still. So.
Yeah, maybe I don't know. Maybe something was not up with me watching it. I was watching it on the app, so maybe there was something not working. I don't know.
The GLORIO blog does not endorse watching understandable versions of the shows you like.
Yeah,
whatever. Hoist the colors.
I could get into a whole other thing about how they're dealing with summertime rendering, but we don't have time for that. Anyway,
how that show got buried even worse than everything on Netflix. Yeah.
So these two episodes are kind of mainly concerned with Maru and Kiriko finally arriving at the other side of the Tokyo Bay. They've sort of found the major settlement in Tokyo here, which is, kind of a shanty town situation, but they do have electricity, right? It's kind of your standard post-apocalyptic, like, this is what passes for civilization now.
Yeah.
I'll just say, like, and this is something throughout the show that I really like. I just love that scene where they're showing just people doing like their normal everyday life. Like I love when you have post-apocalyptic
shit. Like,
yeah, I love when you have like a post-apocalyptic story that still shows that, yes, people would get back to like living whatever life they can at some point, right? Like it's not
right.
like
and not just at the weird weed compound. Like,
yeah,
right. So like it's just kind of cool when you explore that. Okay, well, I mean people are still gonna have fun and do things.
Yeah.
Like they're not just gonna sit around,
like,
waiting to die. It's
like they will return to a form of society, right? Like it's maybe a rougher society to be sure, but like people will return to sort of a more regimented style of living given enough time to recover from, whatever it is that causes the apocalypse in Heavenly Delusion.
Right.
Doesn't stop Maru from getting into trouble anyways, though, right?
Of course, yeah.
He fucking beats the shit out of some dudes in the first of these 2 episodes because, they interrupted his game, man. He was playing Dragon Quest on the arcade.
Yeah, I don't know how that works, but...
Yeah. Like, is it just like there's an NES like board like built into that like fucking arcade?
It's a
Is it one of those
Core,
like yeah, it's a Mr. Core. It's a fake arcade machine.
Yeah, I mean, dude was just down bad trying to figure out if he's gay, and
yeah,
I'll leave that at that for now since I know Aqua just started watching.
You see, look, he's working through some stuff, right?
Working through some stuff,
left we sort of left some of those reveals, at a stopping point in the previous episodes. But
yeah.
But yeah, and so basically it's kind of like the first of these 2 episodes is like, it's trying to figure out where to go next, right? Which is what leads to Kiriko purchasing a map to find out that, just get a feel for the surroundings, right? We find out that there are multiple locations that they could potentially visit, right? They find out about they find out about some community that is supposedly, hosting, a much vaunted, a legendary doctor, and we know that Kiriko is looking
for a doctor, yes,
for a doctor to explain their particular circumstances, and also their sources of water, etc., etc. We kind of also
100% clean water.
Yes. I guess if there's anything that is kind of the focus of these 2 episodes, right, it is mainly kind of continuing to like showcase the bond that Maru and Kiriko show, right? Like that. Even though ostensibly Maru is Kiriko's client, right, that she is a bodyguard for him, that the 2 really do share a pretty close bond friends. At this point, right? That they care particularly strongly for each other. Yeah. We get a little bit of Maru's backstory as well. We find out that he was, basically part of a chain gang until he was rescued by his former ward before.
Right. Who gave Kiriko the ray gun, right?
Yes, the laser gun, and taught Maru how to do the Maru touch / fatal dive.
Yes. Oh man, that's the other thing. Like, I kind of backing up my point of like, these episodes are kind of funny. Like they're pretty silly in a lot of it, and it's like again that having fun in the post-apocalypse is a thing I enjoy.
If you ignore the dead kids, Heavenly Delusion is a pretty fun anime.
Oh, there's a lot of like really really messed up things going on also, but just
right. Because we also get the facility, right, where
Tario is not having a no good very bad day.
Yes,
right. The black scrawl is progressing.
Right, the mysterious disease that has afflicted at least one of the children at the facility. And I think again.
Sorry. I'm tabbing through this episode as we're talking about it, and a thing clicked for me that. After a reveal in the next episode, I'm like, oh my god!
Oh yeah.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. Yes. Things are happening at the facility.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We get some progression on whatever's going on there. Perhaps going in directions we might not have been expecting.
Right.
I was just saying on the break, beyond that, it's like I feel like it's hard to talk about the show because it's the spoilers, and I feel like I don't want to just recap all the like things that happened, but also like so much of this show that I'm enjoying is like the mood and the experience. Like, we talk about how animation wise it looks fantastic and everything, and just the vibes, man. A lot of it is vibes that I really like.
It's why I actually really like the second of these 2 episodes, which like I've already seen some people like get out there and be like, it's a little weird to have filler episodes this early, and it's like I would not call it a filler episode, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like this type of episode is meant to again give you more of the texture of the world, more of the texture of Maru and Kiriko's relationship, right? Like,
so what do you mean this early? Episodes 6 and 7 is like prime filler.
Yeah. Well.
Right,
yeah.
But I guess it's like some people look at it and go, really, like they're fighting a bear, like that seems kind of like a step down compared to like all the monsters they fought.
I don't know. Bears are not to be trifled with.
Right, like says you. I've read Golden Kamui. I know how much trouble a bear can be.
Yeah,
they're so big.
But yeah, there's some very, but also yes, as you say, funny. Right, there's some very good like kind of slapstick gag moments in the 6th episode, right? Like where, Maru, like Kira goes, all right, Maru, finish it off with the Maru touch, right? And, he's calling it the fatal dive because these two chuny ass kids keep trying to come up with new cool names for their abilities. The fucking horrified realization that, oh, this isn't a man-eater, it's just a completely normal animal.
Yes.
Yeah. And like this kind of episode is what I'm talking about when the show started, and I was like, I didn't feel like I was emotionally attached to it yet. And I feel like that's the kind of thing that's like kind of drawing me in from that aspect of it, right? Like I'm becoming more attached to these characters and like invested in what's going to happen with them. Because we have these, quote unquote filler stories that don't seem to be affecting the main plot, but it's not all about the main plot. That's we gotta care, right? So, yeah, I just thought I really liked that episode, the bear fight.
Yeah, it's a dumb bear. It's like bear that's got half of its fur like singed off or something.
Bear's seen better days, right? Yeah, the bear and the the hotel visit, let's say.
Yeah, look, again, this is like one of those things, right? Of like, okay, on one hand, you roll your eyes and go, oh, anime, but also there's an aspect of, like, it is a post-apocalypse. People are doing, what they need to do to survive.
I'm going to be
king
of the hotels.
We're being sex positive in this show.
Yes,
sex positive, and
that's a way to put it.
Oh my god, the fucking
drug positive.
Oh man, the fucking perfect. When we talk about like the importance of timing to a good joke, right? Oh my god, the fucking when Kiriko's like, so Maru, do you would you say you see me as a man or a woman, right? And like, fucking, just the hard cut to Maru instantly hopping off the side of the platform.
Yes. That's what I'm talking about.
No
there's straight up jokes in these episodes. Yeah. Like it's just like straight up comedy. Yeah, very good.
I think that stuff really works, especially for something like this, where it's like, look, there's going to be a lot of hard times ahead, right? Like, there's going to be struggle, either Maru and Kiriko or the facility, right? Like, I'm sure y'all are picking up some stuff that's going on at the facility that are not trending in a good direction.
Yep.
And it's like, I think in a lot of ways, Heavenly Delusion understands you have to have some levity in between those moments.
Yeah. And yeah, they're doing a good job with it. So I mean, that does kind of feel like we're setting up for some things to go down in the next episodes, but I'm ready for it.
Yeah,
so.
And Maru touch worked on a seemingly normal human.
That is also a good detail to point out.
What does that mean? More questions, answering us with more questions, but yeah.
Yes, more questions. Who or what is Asura?
Were you other expecting an alien?
Threw that one in there.
The child in the facility. Yeah.
Why do the adults in charge seem to not really fully understand what's going on? At the facility, there's all sorts of good questions that, I'm looking forward to it. So, please watch this, folks. I feel like we're the only people on the planet watching this. Go check it out. All right. Let's wrap things up.
All right, let's return to high impact corporate lesbian violence.
Yes, Mobile Suit Gundam, the Witch from Mercury. Hoo boy, things going down. Prospera has played her hand to a certain degree. And
that's a way to put it.
That's kind of, well, I feel like in the first episode, that's kind of where we're kicking off. We get the she shows up at the school, and we get the very hilarious moment where she shows up at the Earthian garage or whatever.
Play the like sitcom laugh track. And right.
She's like, "Hey, I'm Prospero's mom." Tee with a little head tilt. I'm like, "Oh my god." Get wet.
But yeah, so we I guess the first of these episodes, 16, kind of mainly focuses on. I mean, it's a very talky episode of Witch from Mercury, but a very necessary one in some regards.
It's like everybody kind of
the status quo, kind of.
Everybody coming back from suspensions or exile or wherever they were. Right?
This is the episode after the Guel fails to save a dying child episode, for context.
Yes.
And we kind of find out that, yes, the school is, funnily enough, not fully like suspended, right? But many students are like withdrawing, pulling out, right? Like it's very obvious at this point that the pretext of the school is like quickly deteriorating.
Yes.
We have the relations between Earthians and Spacians getting even worse, right? Like we get a brief montage that show that like anti-Spacian sentiment on Earth is getting more and more prominent. We are told that I can't remember the exact term, right? But it's like the Benerit group has taken like enforcement of like Earth into its own hands, right? Like it's
we got more
something like that. Let's see if I can find that.
We got more space capitalism kills signs.
Yeah. Just a lot of like, the Benerit is growing increasingly like heavy-handed.
Carrying out security operations at its own discretion under business business security laws or something like that.
God, yes. At its own discretion under business security law is some real chilling shit.
Yeah.
And so we basically, get this feeling that, even if we can't see every moment of it because this isn't a 50-episode series, like the world that we saw in episode 1 is rapidly falling apart. And it is the episode in which we kind of see multiple characters sort of come to terms with their ideological convictions, right? Like, as you say, Lady Prospera reveals her hand to Miorine, right? Like, Lady Prospera is fully, like, mask off, metaphorically.
Metaphorically,
like,
not literally. Yeah.
She's like, yeah, Miorine, I am manipulating my daughter. Yeah, I put my first daughter in a Gundam. What of it? I will do literally whatever it takes to destroy everything your father created.
Yeah, she does explicitly acknowledge that she wants revenge on Delling, right? Well, up until this point, it has seemed more like she was, or at least on his side, or at least working together on Quiet Zero with him.
Right. And she's leveraging Miorine's relationship with Suletta to basically manipulate her to help, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Like, I mean, what sort of comes to a pass in these two episodes, right, is that Lady Prospera's, like, manipulation of Suletta basically allows her to, like, hold leverage on Miorine, right? Because it's basically a situation of, like, either you can let me keep doing what I want to do, which is manipulating my daughter to pilot my other daughter in a Gundam to their self-destruction, which I have zero qualms about allowing to continue happen, or you can become the president of the Benerit group, and then you'll have the authority to stop me. But that'll also move my plans forward. Yep. So it's some very good, delightful, just classic Gundam, behind the scenes politicking.
Yeah.
Yes, machinations. And most importantly of these two episodes, Guel Coin is going to the moon. All of us,
Bob is back.
All of us who held on to our Jaturk stock, we're seeing it bounce back, baby. Guel Jaturk is back.
Yep. So
better than ever.
Really chilled out after seeing children die in front of him.
Yeah, I really like what they're doing with Guel in these two episodes, right? Like, he has returned to the fold. You know, he has returned to Jeturk, but not because of a sense of like obligation to the corporation necessarily, but because he's finally recognized that, for better or worse, Jeturk is where my family is. Jeturk is where the people I care about are, and like, if protecting them means becoming the next CEO, you know, the next inheritor of Jeturk name, then, you know, he will do it.
Multiple that whole episode's about like multiple characters deciding this is what's important to me, and so I will do whatever it takes to protect that thing, no matter what it takes. No matter what shit I have to do.
And in a lot of ways, that then perfectly lines up with the very the unbelievably melodramatic Yuri tragedy that we get this week.
My heart is in 1,000 pieces.
So I mean, Miorine is kind of left with no choice but to play into Prospera's plan, right?
Like, because in a lot of ways, the tragedy of this last episode is Miorine continues to try to test Suletta, right? Like,
would you give up Ariel?
Would you give up Ariel? Would you give up? Well, and the tragedy is Suletta cannot. She will not, right? Because in the same way that Guel feels he cannot escape from the Jeturk family name and what it means to him, to ask Suletta to forsake her mother and the Ariel would be to forsake what she sees as fundamental to herself, right? To who she is as a person, right? Also, like, to her, they are everything.
Right. Also, what's important is that Miorine herself also has things she can't give up, like her pride. Because, like, a lot of the conflict is hinged around the fact that Miorine just can't be honest to Suletta about that she really does care about her.
Right.
She has to do it in some backhanded way to, like, I know what's better for you.
And the tragedy here is that, like, what Miorine will probably have to come to a realization in the following episodes is she not basically just walking in the exact same footsteps as her father?
Right.
Like, you know, the apple not falling far from the tree.
I talked about this way early on about how with Miorine's and Suletta's relationship, how they like are doing things to help and what they think is helping the other person because they care about the other person, but because they don't talk about it or communicate what they're doing, it like messes everything up.
And they've like fundamentally different understandings of like what doing that means, right? Like,
Yeah. So even though they're doing something to help the other person, there's like, I don't know, a piece of that the communication's not there. They don't realize that that's maybe not what the other person wants or needs, but in their brain they think that's what it is, right? And it's like,
because I mean, like there's a very like real, like bitter tragedy to Miorine, like eavesdropping on, you know, Suletta and Guel's conversation, right? Where Suletta basically declares her like everlasting, undying love for Miorine.
It's not even basically. She says we're going to get married and get rings and get like anybody doubting like that Suletta is in love with Miorine, they just like smash that with a hammer. Like,
but I mean, what the tragedy of it though is that like it's clear these two love each other so much, but like. So what Suletta's like the tragedy of Suletta's declaration that I will do anything for Miorine, what she is saying beneath that is I will do anything in the Gundam for Miorine, which is the absolute last thing she wants to hear from Suletta at this point, right? Because now that Miorine understands what it means to pilot Gundam Ariel, right? It takes on a much more sinister connotation. And It feels like, yes, like Miorine is like in a very misguided attempt at like trying to make Suletta quit Ariel cold turkey, right? Like if you won't quit the Ariel, I will steal her from you because I think that is what is best. But I think you know, we all can see from Suletta's perspective, this is probably just going to drive her even further into Lady Prospera's arms, right? Like this.
Yeah.
I don't know, the relationship makes me. You guys know the like the old, I think it's a short story, The Gift of the Magi.
Oh yeah, look.
Oh yeah,
very.
That's what their relationship reminds me of. Where like their, if anybody doesn't know that story, it's
I brought you this Gundam for Christmas.
Yeah, it's like the husband and wife try to buy Christmas presents, and like the wife cuts her hair to to buy a watch chain for her husband, but her husband
sells the watch
to buy her combs for her hair.
Yep.
Right.
And the moral of the story is different, but it's kind of what it reminds me of like, without the communication and fully seeing the big picture, like everybody's like kind of trying to help but not really helping because they're so that's kind of what it makes me think of. But yeah, it's just that's the drama, right? Like that's the
I do wonder if there is still a happy ending for the two of them in this, because they seem to live in such fundamentally different worlds mentally. Like,
okay, so
Suletta is basically like a child.
Yeah, they reflect her face in the unripe tomato and everything.
Right. Yeah. Whereas Miorine is forced to grow up so quickly. The thing feels that Suletta seems like a pawn in the game, and she is. We have been kind of like. Do we know who she is? Is there more to her than if you say it, Mom, and then it must be true?
And that's what Miorine is trying to do, right?
Right.
Like, if I cut Suletta off from all of her from everything, then like she'll have to step up, right?
Right.
Surely she'll step up and like take control of her own destiny.
And I mean, despite like how misguided I think Miorine's actions end up being in this latest episode, I do think that the overall so whether Miorine and Suletta get a happy ending, I don't think I can confidently speak to anymore. But what I think I can speak to, based on my understanding of just past character arcs in Gundam, is that a lot of Gundams are about their protagonists rediscovering their humanity or sort of re-galvanizing the things that make them feel human in spite of piloting the dreadful monster that is the Gundam. And I think that I don't think that the show wants Suletta to stay a pawn of her mother, right? Like much of this show, so much of which from Mercury's theme is not inheriting the sins of your father, right? Escaping the influences and the past like actions of the people who came before you, right? And so I do think at its core, Suletta's primary narrative thrust at this point is likely going to be that journey of self-actualization.
How do I become my own person? Because the show has been so good at like not having her be an active character, at her just like bending to the whims of the people she finds important.
Yeah, and I do think with Suletta, they're setting it up to where I think it's going to be like Prospera and even Miorine are not giving her enough credit for being able to understand what's going on, if that makes sense. Like, and I think she will figure it. I think she will sort things out because I think what we have seen, and one of the things I've really liked about the show so far, is every time Suletta and Miorine have some kind of big misunderstanding, they do clear it up eventually. Right?
They work it out by the end. It takes some time, but they do.
Yeah. So even the smashing the soldier guy. At the end of season 1, like once they had time to sit down and talk about it, it's not like they're like, oh, I can never talk to her again. Like eventually they work it out, or like, and even in this episode, Suletta understands. She's like, oh, I'm sorry, I said something weird last time we talked when she was saying I would do anything my mother. Like Suletta is not totally like completely ignorant of everything that's happening, but I do think she'll figure it out, and I'm hoping that the pattern will continue, that these things are not like permanently. I don't feel like, or at least I'm hoping that they're not like going to be permanently have this misunderstanding where Suletta thinks Miorine's abandoned her or whatever, and that they'll figure it out.
But that's the thing. Like, I think
this time is
right. It's just how long is that going to take? But yeah,
the show is too well written because a lesser writer would have just been like, oh, Suletta has been so truly brainwashed that she's just a woman child who will just do anything her mom says, and that means that the smart characters can freely manipulate her, and that's the tragedy. Whereas,
you say that, but we cannot forget that this is being written by Ichiro Okoshi. It's like,
Right.
Well, that's more of a wild card, right?
Valkyrie the Liberator Okochi.
Look, I am having a great time with The Witch for Mercury, but Ichiro Okochi's name hangs over this show like the headman's axe in a way that I cannot forget.
That's
more of
written a lot of good.
It's just a wild card, right?
It's like it could lean either way.
Yeah. Well, I will say my big hope is I hope that with Miorine, seemingly in scare quotes having abandoned Suletta and Suletta having lost the aerial. You know who's who's got to step up now? It's time. I'm not the step parent. I'm the parent who stepped up. It's time for Choo Choo and the rest of Earth House to have Suletta's back.
Right. What the trajectory I potentially see this going is that like now that Suletta has she's been sort of forcibly cut off from her main I don't know, parasitic's not the right word, but codependent. Her dependent relationship, right?
Yes.
So this would give an opportunity for her to be brought to Earth personally and learn some of the same lessons Guel did by seeing Earth personally,
right.
If not necessarily in the same traumatic way, but to get some of that her eyes can now see the wider situation instead of just the person in front of her leading her hand.
I mean, in a lot of ways, this is why I'm almost now becoming increasingly convinced. Oh my god, is Guel just the prototype run for Suletta's character development?
Yeah.
Because all these things we are talking about we're hoping to happen to Suletta happened to Guel in the course of 1.5 episodes, right?
Yeah.
He has undergone great trauma, a great permanent separation from his loved ones, then endured a tremendous amount of strife and trauma on Earth that has opened his eyes to the grander shape of the world, and it has made him a more mature, self-assured individual.
But we're still not entirely sure whether this is a good thing, though, because the thing with Guel is his relationship with his father was not as positive as Suletta's relationship with Miorine is, right?
It was but
he might be we were warning that he might be learning all the wrong lessons from losing his father and being traumatized.
I definitely think that is still possible, to be sure.
Yeah, I think if I'm following you, Aqua, his whole thing about I'm gonna basically do this for my dad at first. I think that kind of gets supplanted in this latest episode when we see everybody, his brother and everybody cheering for him, and he's realizes those are the people.
These are my precious things.
Yeah,
right.
Those are the things.
Right. Those are the people he's doing it for, not to
And he is in cahoots with Miorine to quote unquote do what is best for Suletta, right?
I mean, look at how much this dude has grown up. He's duels? Are you fucking for real?
I do love how this episode is a throwback to season 1.
But I love the contrast, right? Now that Guel has seen what real ass mobile suit combat looks like,
duels are an absurd artifice.
An absurd mockery of it, right?
Yeah.
Even he recognizes it, he pilots the Darebald for the first time in 14 episodes, and it does not feel like putting on a comfortable pair of shoes. It feels like stepping back into something very dangerous and scary, right? And
yeah.
But also, hey, shout out to Darebald, maybe one of my favorite suits in the show. It's gotten its redemption.
Also, are we going to just ignore the humiliation of Elan Ceres number 5?
Whatever.
Oh man, it's so good.
Little loser boy.
Dude, this dude gets fucked over so bad in both these episodes. We didn't even mention, right, that Elan tries to hijack the Ariel, and as we all guessed, you try to pilot Ariel without Ariel's permission.
You get your brain fried. Yeah.
Right. Little Aries Samaya just points at you and says, perish.
Yeah.
Yes. And then in the next episode, he just walks up to Suletta and be like, give me the robot! And she's like, no! And then he's like, but I'll die!
fucking little pathetic little taser. He's like, I'm gonna tase you for the aerial. Fucking.
And then he starts hanging out in Loser Town with Norea and Nika.
Yes. The Shadow Realm where all the exiles are at. Yeah.
Oh yeah, just
Nika just has to sit in the opposite corner from Norea.
Oh my god, just it's such a sad state of affairs for everybody in that room.
Yeah. Also, things always go wrong when Suletta sings "Happy Birthday."
God.
Oh man. Why can't they just let the lesbians win? Can we just get there?
Something I wish would happen, and I think might have happened in this version of the show with more episodes, but I don't think will, is I want to see what's actually happening in Mercury. Like, I think...
Right.
Yeah.
I think, like, that... Like, I think
Mercury
you're right that
is even like a thing.
Right. Like, I think you're right that it'll be Earth House that, like, helps Suletta move through this. But like, I would have liked to see, I would like to see her, like, because, you know, she said, "Oh, my dream of going to school so I could open school in Mercury," and then, like, that's not ever been mentioned again except for,
right.
like,
if we
one
actually
time.
like saw like what it was like to live on Mercury, we would have a better understanding of why Suletta's convictions are so strong.
I think we're supposed to, like, just conflate Earth and Mercury as, like, the two. As, like, the
backwards,
backwoods places, but yeah,
I think Suletta's dream is mostly just like to profile her as like, oh, she is different, you know, she is innocent, she is
right. I mean, but I'm saying, like, now that she's in a position where, like, she needs a new guiding set of principles, right? Like, in her own life, that isn't just doing what Mom says or doing what Miorine says.
This is one of those difficult things, Iro, where I think you are completely correct, and I think the reason we are not going to get it is because this show just does not have the time, and so that is why if you read the short story, that
it's been a while.
the novella,
I know, like,
it actually
that is on Mercury, right? But yeah,
it is in the novella.
It's basically just like a mining station or something,
right? The novella explains that Mercury is basically like a mining station. Like, its population is quite small, and that life there is quite difficult, and that where Suletta got her piloting expertise from is that she was like.
Yeah, she's like a rescue worker.
Right, she was like Mercury's like ace, like emergency rescuer, like that she could
EMT, space EMT.
Yeah, she was a space EMT, right? She would use the aerial to get to hard to reach areas and rescue like trapped miners, because I guess apparently the idea is that the accident rate for mining on Mercury is insanely high. So
right. And it's like I did know that it's just like it
would be nice to have it in the show. Yes. Mm-hmm. See, all right, Iro, where I thought you were going to say is the thing we won't see because we don't have enough time is the show won't let Choo Choo kill. Just let her kill. Let her cook. Come on, all these episodes where Choo Choo's got the fucking wrench or the pipe and she's ready to just brain some Spacian dipshit. Like, just let her do it, man. Like, what's the worst that could happen?
She's just gonna beat up what's his name, Shadiq's entire like harem.
Yeah, you know, just let the girl cook.
Do the fucking old boy hammer fight.
Let her be the one that finishes off Elon 5.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well,
I do have to say one more thing. Okay. Shout out to Kana Ichinose for her absolutely heartbreaking performance at the end of the latest episode.
Oh man,
because that just fucking destroyed me, and mostly because it's very relatable. Because like Suletta is like very obviously characterized as someone on the autistic spectrum. Like, she has all the traits, and I just think that's very. I've already talked about this on the podcast back with the Elan episodes where she just barges into House Jeturk singing Happy Birthday. But I mean, it's such a empathetic take on the character that is like, and all that does not reduce her to. That's the whole thing. Why I like the thing that she is not a pawn who just listens to. Like, that is obviously a part of her character because, you know, that is what her mindset is like, but she is like, the show emphasizes with her and shows that she is a fully rounded character who can in fact make her own decisions, even if she thinks in very strict like patterns and very strict black and white like ideas. So I really hope that what we have been talking about here is true, and the rest of the show will focus more on Suletta finding her own destiny and becoming independent from where she has been in the past couple of episodes, just being basically a trophy almost for various
right.
Just being used
factions to manipulate. Yes,
right.
Yes.
Just being used as the pilot of Ariel, right? Like, and no,
right.
Just being manipulated. And I feel pretty confident that in some capacity that will happen. Like that's got to be where we're headed. But who knows?
Well, for now,
we see it.
Tanuki's smile status not protected.
The cockatiel must pay for her crimes.
to make things worse. Next week isn't it a recap episode?
Right?
God, it's such a
brutal
cliffhanger to leave.
Yes, we got to sit on this brutal cliffhanger for 2 weeks. I guess it's not as bad as the end of season 1 for 3 months, but it's still.
I don't know, man. I don't know. At least she was happy at the end of season 1.
Well, yes.
and now I just have to for 2 weeks think and be there that Suletta is somewhere out there crying and screaming.
Yeah.
Well, that's nothing new for Gundam protagonists.
Right.
All right.
Well,
I think that's gonna do it for this episode. Then we'll call it there. Let's do our housekeeping. We're still on Twitter. That still exists. Our website. I got out of order. Our website is theglorioblog.com, where you can see all of our old first looks. I guess we're almost halfway through the season now, but that's who knows what seasons are anymore, right? So theglorioblog.com. You can follow us on Twitter at theglorioblog, on co-host at GLORIO. You can subscribe to the podcast.
On the sinking ship.
On iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean, Stitcher, of course, YouTube. You can check us out there, where you can comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell. Tell us what shows we're missing, or tell us why we're wrong about these shows. We're not, but you can try.
We're also definitely not missing one.
Yes. We clearly are watching the only shows worth watching this season. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, and we'll catch everybody next time.
Bye.